So you can't just search up Skyrim on Steam and buy the 2011 game version anymore, but I did find a link that leads to the 2011 Skyrim Steam page, and I used it to rebuy the original game in all its unpolished glory. It doesn't even have DLC. This was back when using Reanimate on a dragon did this. This was before the slow time shout was patched to make the player move even slower during it. You're still faster in slow time mode than NPCs, as you'd know, but the old time OG Skyrim players out there would remember just how OP the slow time shout used to be. 10 years ago, in this same month of April back in 2013, we actually released our first ever video on YouTube, which we filmed off an Xbox 360 to show the hidden benefits of the necromage perk and how they could be harnessed to make one of the coolest vampire builds to ever walk Skyrim. It used the slow time shout and other buffs to run around and blast an entire bandit fort with the ice storm spell from multiple directions, only for time to go back to normal and the deadly frost to close in, wiping out everyone inside. The infamous necromage perk from the restoration skill tree, which required a skill level of 70 to unlock, makes your spells more effective against the undead. It sounds like a rather normal perk, but as you may know, it additionally makes a bunch of effects more powerful if they relate to you, the player, so long as you are a vampire and therefore you are technically undead. Whether Bethesda wanted the perk to have this hidden benefit to begin with, we can't say. However, they obviously did find out about it and decided not to fully patch it. If you're using the unofficial patch, then for whatever reason it is patched, so you're going to want to fix that by downloading the USSEP Necromage fix mod if you're using it. Anyway, I've been playing with the unofficial patch on for so long that it never occurred to me that Skyrim's vampires gained a new advantage when the Anniversary Edition came out, one that can improve the necromage benefits even further. If you like the necromage perk, then you're going to love the double necromage perk. So how does one acquire an additional necromage boost, as if one wasn't enough? Well, you will need to play the creation included in the Anniversary Edition known as Dreams of the Dead. It involves you stumbling into a necromancer's lair and solving a puzzle which ultimately lets you keep the place and the artifacts within, having your very own player home. There's a bone forge to create permanent undead followers and an altar you can use to make grand soul gems into black soul gems. You can even get the Staff of Worms, which is essentially a Staff of Dead Thrall, the master conjuration spell used to permanently raise a body to fight for you. Then there's two rather ridiculous looking helmets that you may remember from previous Elder Scrolls games, Morrowind and Oblivion. There's the helm of Orin Bearclaw and the Bloodworm helm, said to be left behind by the Worm King Manamako himself. It isn't the tidiest or most elegant looking light armor helmet, however, if you can find a way to style it in a way that you think looks cool for your vampire build, then you'll be able to enjoy its hidden benefit. The helmet itself makes conjuration spells cost 25% less to cast, and states that damage against the undead increases by 25% too. However, this second effect was seemingly achieved by imbuing the item with the necromage perk effect. Be a vampire with the necromage perk, and then pop on this gigantic helmet to stack the necromage perk on top of the necromage perk, and you're playing a double necromage build. So what does necromage stacked on top of necromage look like? Well, the original perk would add a 25% magnitude increase and a 50% duration increase to spells against undead. As a vampire, you'd gain boosts to a bunch of things, such as all your enchantments improving by 25%, and you'd get buffs to certain standing stones, perks, powers, spells, and even shouts. Think of the original necromage taking boosts to a 1.25 multiplier, and now with the Bloodworm helm, you'll be stacking 25% on top of 1.25, bringing it up to a 1.56 total multiplier. Once you put the helmet on, you may have to unequip and re-equip certain items to get the enchantment boosts. You'll need to check the active effects tab in the magic section to see the full benefits, as they won't show up on the item descriptions themselves. Keep in mind that this necromage boost will make your vampiric weakness to fire even more detrimental. However, this can easily be countered with fire resistance enchantments, which will also be double buffed now. This vampire I've got here is by no means fully optimized as a build. I haven't smithed up the armor nor used any restoration glitch exploits or anything of the like, like, but I have enchanted a bunch of my gear with effects to give you a good idea of just how much effects get boosted. On the amulet, I have an increase of 57 to my carry weight instead of 37, and plus 31% magic resistance instead of 20%. On the ring, my one-handed damage is boosted by a huge 62% instead of 40%, and my alteration cast reduction is 39% instead of 25%. On the chest piece, my destruction cast reduction is also 39% instead of 25%, and my stamina regen is boosted to 48% instead of 31%. The boots provide a gigantic 71% fire resistance buff instead of 46%, and again a 62% one-handed damage boost instead of 40%. The gauntlets grant 62% increased bow damage instead of 40%, and this same 40 to 62 boost is found on my shield's fortified block enchantment, which also has an additional 31% magic resistance boost instead of 20. The conjuration effect on the helmet itself is buffed just once, from 25% conjuration cost reduction to 31%. Remember that without the helmet you'll still have a boost from necromage, and then with it you get the extra one, giving you stats like those I've listed. If you're playing a different build too, like a pure mage, it's cool to save slot space and enchant less items with casting cost reduction, and then use the other slots for different things. I'd also mention that some point out that you shouldn't use a vampire lord form with this setup, because apparently you can lose some of the more permanent bonuses we'll talk about. However, I didn't notice this in my testing specifically. I seem to keep all the buffs, and I did test from all sorts of categories, so I'm not sure what exactly is lost there. I do know that your enchantments lose their boosts temporarily, but you can fix that by unequipping and re-equipping all of your enchanted gear. Honestly though, this doesn't concern me, as the fun part is all the boosts you can get for your build in their humanoid form anyway. So if this perk and helmet combo only affected enchantments, it would still be insanely powerful for vampire builds, and for many that's all they'll want, but there is even more to it. Funnily enough, the Bone Wolf pet effect from the Bone Wolf creation once stacked on top for some triple necromage mayhem apparently, but Bethesda has since patched that. It definitely didn't act like a triple buff in my own testing, however it does still let your magic have extra potency against undead, meaning you can actually use it in conjunction with the Bloodworm Helm to resurrect never used before dead thralls. So necromage itself lets you get stronger thralls than the level 40 cap, undead category thralls specifically, but now you can add the Bloodworm Helm on top, then the Bone Wolf pet, and suddenly there's a new vampire in town. And no, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about a level 65 vampire subtype you may not even know about called a Nightmaster vampire. Being able to permanently resurrect this absolute beast to serve you is sensational. But yes, I guess there is a new vampire in town, and no, it's still not you. I'm talking about Archcurate Vyther, who can now be thralled with Necromage, the Bone Wolf pet, and the Bloodworm Helm. In fact, this all opens up new best dead thrall possibilities, so I may have to make a brand new strongest dead thralls competitors guide to showcase what I find out. My video is linked in the description if you want to see the winners without this wild setup. But what else can Necromage and the Bloodworm Helm boost? Well, it can double buff certain standing stones, although unlike enchantments, these can actually just show you the base effect in the active effects screen, even though the boosted effects are taking place, which I discover using console commands. So you can take the ritual stone further past the level of 75 than you go with Necromage alone, but you won't really be finding many enemies above that level. A more impressive example is that it can actually boost our two favorite original vanilla Skyrim standing stones, the Lord Stone and the Atronach Stone. The Lord Stone had its magic resistance taken to 31% from 25 and its armor boost from 50 to 62 with Necromage, but now you'll see that magic resistance up at 39% and the armor boosted by 78. The Atronach Stone's spell absorption will go from 50 all the way to 78% with the addition of the Bloodworm Helm on top of Necromage. Magicka will also be fortified by 78 points instead of 50, although the decreased Magicka regen is also enhanced. But just like your vampiric weakness to fire, that is easy to counter with enchantments if desired. The Steed Stone will make carry weight increase by 156 points instead of the now measly base 100 amount. I didn't see the Apprentice Stone listed as one affected by Necromage, however in my testing it seemed to work, as I got additional Magicka regen speed if the stone was selected while wearing the Bloodworm Helm. You better believe I've had my phone stopwatch on hand to manually check a lot of stuff when making this video. In my testing, the Lady Stone's 25% health and stamina regen benefit was boosted by the double Necromage effect, getting getting up to 39%, and the Shadow Stone just had its duration increased from 60 to 90 seconds. However, as we'll talk about, that seems to just be the standard necromage duration increase and is unrelated to the helmet. I must also warn you that you'll want to make sure you put on the helmet before selecting your standing stone, otherwise you'll have to go pick a different one so you can return to the one that you want with your helmet on to reactivate it. You can take the helmet off once you actually have the standing stone if you want to, and still benefit from the full boost. Certain perks are also boosted. This is where things get tricky, as perk effects don't go into your active effects screen, and I've seen people have slightly different takes on what things are affected and whether or not you need to get the necromage perk first. In my own experience, you will want to get the necromage perk as fast as possible so that the new perks chosen after getting necromage actually get a boost. However, many perks are not affected, such as the 5 out of 5 damage ones, so you can safely get those and not play some super underpowered build in the process of getting necromage. From my testing, I noticed that it matters that you wear the bloodworm helm when you pick the perk. I could remove the helmet just like the standing stones, and the full boost stayed with me. The Atronach perk from the alteration skill tree got boosted all the way to 46.88%, giving me almost 50% spell absorption from one perk, much better than the standard 30%. However, with necromage alone, the boost is 37.5% regardless of whether you put that helmet back on, so make sure it's on when you pick your perks. This was also the case with the dual flurry perk. Seeing the speed multiplier boost up so high for dual wielding is really cool, and I was able to check a lot of this stuff with console commands. In this case, I used getav weapon speed mult. Again, wear the helmet when you get the perk. It can start to feel like you're using the elemental fury shout when using it, and if you do use it, well, the results do look insane. You know how in some movies demons move at an unnaturally scary pace? That's what I like to imagine my enemies see when I'm playing a vampire this way, which, let's be real, in the lore they are meant to have some sort of superhuman physical enhancements, like how Serana can just lift Vytha into the air in the Dawnguard DLC. Also, don't forget that dual flurry actually applies to single-handed attacks too, so long as you've got a one-handed weapon equipped in each hand slot. There can be rare exceptions to the rules, however. For example, I was able to toggle the strength of the Avoid Death perk between the standard necromage boost and the helm's extra boost simply by taking it on and off. Interestingly, Avoid Death isn't listed on mainstream lists as a perk affected by necromage, but it definitely was for me, increasing my health by huge amounts instead of 250 when my HP dropped below 10%. Perhaps Avoid Death functions more as an applied spell being put onto the player at the time it occurs. Also, again, I do want to reiterate that most perks in the game are not affected, but the fun ones that do get a boost make it well worth it. If you keep your helm on for the magic resistance perk, you'll be able to get it up to 46.88% with 3 ranks instead of the base 30%. The recovery restoration perk will increase your magicka regen further, and with both ranks, instead of 50% faster regen, you'll have a very nice 78% boost. The Fists of Steel perk from the heavy armor tree is also impacted if you plan on playing an unarmed build. Basically, the armor rating based damage will be boosted just like the other perks, so choose it with the helmet on for the most damage possible. The Windwalker perk from light armor will take your stamina regen boost up to 78% with the double necromage stack instead of the base 50% for wearing all light armor pieces. For all the hoarders out there going with the Steed Stone, you'll be pleased to know that the extra pockets perk from the pickpocket skill tree will also increase your carry weight by 156 points instead of the base 100. Archery gets some good boosts too actually, although make sure you don't break your game. In a bad way, I mean. So the power shot perk will increase your stagger bonus even further with the helmet. And not only will you stagger more foes, but with the quick shot perk you'll draw your bow faster than ever. Steady hand is where things get controversial, and you'll want to save and test this yourself. Some say that necromage, even without the helmet, makes time move too slow with this perk. For this reason, you may want to get the perk before getting necromage if you plan on being an archer. Now, I totally agree with this if you're getting both ranks with the helmet set up specifically, but I personally found that just one rank is doable, and it does give you some intense slow time to plan your shots with only one perk point being used. Again though, it comes down to preference. Quick reflexes from the block skill is a perk that's hard to test. It slows time down when enemies power attack if you block. From my testing, it felt like having the helmet on when the perk was chosen did slow time further, however it wasn't to some crazy extent to me. Still, having quick reflexes is great to further enhance that vampiric superhuman feel. With this double necromage setup, undead will obviously be destroyed by your spells like never before, and even your weapon enchantments themselves seem to get boosted against undead. But it's the spells you cast on yourself as an undead build that I love most. Flesh spells are a perfect choice. Ebony Flesh adds 100 points of armor rating, but this becomes 156 with the double necromage boost setup. The duration though is only taken from 60 seconds to 90 seconds, and remember that the necromage perk does boost duration by 50%, so it seems the bloodworm helm isn't actually affecting it, and it's only the magnitude related benefits that are affected by this setup. Although that's still more than enough, to be honest. I don't know if anyone's complaining because they don't get an extra duration boost from the helmet. With the final rank of mage armor making flesh spells 3 times as strong if you're not wearing armor, you can actually take your armor rating to 468 off ebony flesh alone. You'll need to cast the spell with the helmet on, but then remove it so you're not wearing armor. Ward spells will also provide more armor with this setup, and the duration is increased by standard necromage for muffle, candlelight, water breathing, invisibility, and for summoned Atronachs and Daedra. Cloak spells seem to be an interesting thing that's affected. Physically they look the same to me, but I was able to stand near a person, cast Frost Cloak, and move away from the point of damaging them, then put on the Bloodworm Helm, recast Frost Cloak, and suddenly they were in range. Having such a large damage range on cloaks is really cool. And another benefit is that normal healing spells will actually heal more. So I tested Close Wounds, which heals 100 points and was boosted to 150 because of the regeneration perk. And then with the helmet on, it heals 234 because of that 1.56 multiplier added to the 150. Sometimes powers can even be affected. The Breton Dragon Skin Racial Power makes spell absorption go all the way to 78% with the Bloodworm Helm setup, and similarly to the other effects we've discussed, the duration is boosted from 60 to 90 seconds. I did test other ones like Adrenaline Rush, which Red Guards use to get stamina back really fast, and the High Elf Highborn Power, which does the same with Magicka, and the regen rates are boosted twice, once by Necromage and again with the helmet. I didn't want to just be imagining things, so I did confirm this with console commands. So I have a feeling there's actually plenty of things that the human eye won't really notice that are actually impacted by Necromage, and they aren't on most people's lists if you search up what this perk does. Even potions and food can be affected. They seem to get the double magnitude benefit and the standard Necromage duration boost. Same thing goes for temporary blessings like those from shrines, and even some passive quest bonuses like the Agent of Mara, which usually gives 15% magic resistance, gave my character 23% due to the Bloodworm setup. Certain shouts are also improved for our double Necromage vampires. It's hard to test everything here as some differences get hard to detect and hard if not impossible to find console commands for. Some shouts just have duration increased by our standard Necromage boost. Things like Become Ethereal and Call of Valor, for example, they last longer. Elemental Fury is an awesome shout to use, and if you truly want to look like a demon with paranormal powers, then this looks truly game-breaking. You'll get buffed from Necromage and the Helm to take the speed of your attacks to new heights. The slow time shout can be fun to use but hard to test for the helmet, as it's hard to calculate if I've slowed time down to 7.5% of normal time or 5.6% of normal time. It looks very similar. Either way, time's moving pretty slow, and the duration is extended by Necromage, so it's a pretty fun shout to use anyway, even if it's not like the old 2011 days. Another cool one is Dragon Aspect. You'll get the Necromage duration increase, and then as far as I can tell, the full helmet double buff too, as the armor rating it gave me jumped from 100 to 156, which is the precise Necromage multiplier. Some of its other benefits were harder to confirm, but given the armor rating numbers, I'm pretty sure they'd be there. In general, I think by now you're well convinced you need to try a Bloodworm Helm playthrough. Just make sure you can style it right for your build. Thank you so much for watching. It was a massive effort to make this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Socials are in the description, so follow me on Twitter if you're interested or have any questions. And if you do want to help support me in making content like this, you can do so on Patreon, linked below. Another massive thank you for sharing our love of the Elder Scrolls. My name is Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.